Imagine you own one of the most valuable marketplaces in the world, yet the most successful merchants suddenly launch an open revolt against your rules. What began in August 2020 as a deliberate provocation has escalated into one of the most significant legal battles in modern technology history. It all began when the global phenomenon Fortnite was banned from the Apple App Store overnight. Epic Games, the developer behind the game, had dared to directly attack the sacred architecture of Apple's ecosystem. The reason for this drastic move was Epic Games' refusal to continue paying Apple the mandatory 30% commission due on every single in-app transaction. Epic Games promptly implemented its own payment system and offered players discounts for bypassing Apple, which constitutes a clear violation of the strict guidelines. Apple responded immediately by removing the game, but Epic Games was prepared and filed a comprehensive antitrust lawsuit in the US just hours later. This move was no accident, but a calculated attack on the business model of the world's most valuable company. The core of the conflict lies in the massive market power Apple wields through its closed ecosystem. Anyone using an iPhone in the US will inevitably end up in the App Store, as Apple has always strictly regulated access to third-party sources. For Apple, this store is a goldmine, as the company takes a 30% cut from nearly every digital sale. This applies not only to the purchase price of an app, but also to every virtual currency, every in-game skin, and even boosts in dating apps. While Apple argues that this fee is necessary to ensure the platform's security and fund its infrastructure, critics view it as a modern form of highway robbery. In contrast, Epic CEO Tim Sweeney steadfastly maintains that a secure and profitable store could be operated with a commission of just 8%. The discrepancy between these figures illustrates just how much extra profit Apple generates through its monopoly position, and how massive the impact is on pricing for software developers worldwide. The conflict between Epic Games and Apple played out not only in the courtroom, but also in the public eye. Immediately after the ban, Epic launched a media offensive, including a deliberately provocative video that parodied Apple's famous 1984 commercial. This symbolically cast Apple as Big Brother itself, a targeted attack on its image. Apple, on the other hand, positioned itself as a protector of security, privacy, and user experience. The message, "A closed system protects users from fraud, malware, and data misuse." This PR war shows that this is not just about the law, but also about public perception. Whoever controls the narrative also indirectly influences policy and regulation. Apple often justifies its pricing by pointing to the video game industry, where Sony and Microsoft also charge high commissions on their consoles. However, economic experts point out that this comparison is flawed, as console manufacturers often sell their hardware at a loss and only turn a profit through software sales. At Apple, the reality is completely different, as the iPhone is already a high-priced premium product at the time of purchase that generates enormous profits. An iPhone is not a subsidized entry-level device, but rather a ticket into an aftermarket where the user is bound by Apple's terms for the entire lifespan of the device. Once deeply rooted in the Apple universe, users don't simply switch smartphones just because a single transaction in an app might be a few dollars cheaper. This user inertia cements the company's dominant position and makes the App Store one of the most profitable business segments in the world, while hardware sales alone generate record profits. This distinction highlights why Apple's business model faces fundamentally different scrutiny than traditional platform ecosystems. Since then, there has been heated debate in US courtrooms over whether Apple is operating an illegal monopoly. Apple's defense is simple. They claim there is no monopoly at all, since consumers can switch to Android devices from Samsung or Google at any time. There they have access to various app stores and alternative payment methods. The opposing side, however, argues based on the theory of a closed ecosystem. Once a user has spent hundreds of dollars on apps, cloud services, and accessories, the switching costs are so high that there can be no talk of real competition. In recent years, therefore, more and more giants like Spotify, Airbnb, and the Match Group have joined the criticism. They accuse Apple of stifling competition and hindering innovation by artificially inflating the prices of competing products through high fees, while Apple's own services, such as Apple Music, do not have to pay this markup. This creates an unfair competitive situation in which Apple is both the referee and an active player on the field. The outcome of this debate will ultimately determine how competition is defined in tightly controlled digital ecosystems. While the wheels of justice turn slowly in the US, external pressure has increased dramatically. In Europe, laws have already been passed that force Apple to allow alternative app stores and payment systems. Regulatory authorities in the US are also closely monitoring this precedent, as it sets the direction for the entire tech industry. Epic Games is waging a two-front war and is simultaneously suing Google. Although Android is theoretically more open, Epic accuses the search engine giant of systematically disadvantaging alternative stores through technical barriers and contracts with smartphone manufacturers. This is no longer just about Fortnite, but about the fundamental question of who dictates the rules in the digital space, and how much power we are willing to grant to the major platform operators. The decisions being made in the US today will influence how billions of people access information and entertainment in the future. At the end of this massive legal battle stands the average user. The effects of the Apple tax are often subtle, but noticeable to anyone who subscribes to digital services or makes in-app purchases. Many services cost more on the iPhone than in a browser because developers have to pass on the 30% commission to customers. Whether it's a Spotify subscription, a dating app, or small in-game purchases, the end consumer indirectly helps fund Apple's profits.
We appreciate it very much, Tim. Apple.
The perfectly integrated universe of products and services that Apple has built over decades is designed to be user-friendly, but at the same time, it feels like a golden cage. Once you're trapped inside it, you have little choice but to accept the operator's prices and terms. Every time you click the buy button, a portion of your money flows directly to Cupertino, without Apple having provided any new service for that specific purchase. In this way, the cost of platform control is often invisible, yet deeply embedded in the everyday digital experiences of millions of users. Today, we find ourselves at a turning point where the unchecked power of the tech giants could be effectively curtailed for the first time. The legal battle between Epic and Apple has set off an avalanche that will permanently change the face of the mobile internet. Whether Apple will ultimately be forced to fully open its system, or whether it can maintain its status through minor concessions, such as reducing the commission for small developers, remains the defining question of our time. The coming months will show whether the US legal system is ready to limit the dominance of platform operators in favor of freer competition. The only certainty is that the debate over digital monopolies and fair competition is just really gaining momentum, and we will all feel the consequences of these decisions in our daily digital lives. It is a battle for the future of digital freedom and the question of how much our convenience will ultimately cost us. Thank you for your interest in this in-depth look at the battle over the App Store. If you enjoyed this analysis, stay tuned for more updates on the major power struggles in Silicon Valley. Here you'll find more interesting videos from my channel. Take care.